All right, jumping over to the YouTube comments for a question for today. I figured I'm going to try something out a little bit different because I'm at home. Clearly, I'm not commuting. Um, there's a reason for being a little bit behind on these because usually my Mondays I get like 4 videos done. It didn't happen, didn't go to CrossFit, and then didn't commute to CrossFit today because my wife drove. So I'm trying to make some videos to catch up. But anyway, I'm going to try something different. We're going to read this YouTube comment, and then I'm going to use AI to generate ideas to see if they're sensible, and we can talk through them. See how this goes. It's going to be very different than usual. So this person commented. This is Michael Harrington 5860. By the way, thank you very much for the question. I appreciate it. Any hope for someone without a CS degree and no professional experience? I think this is probably going to describe many people that watch this channel. I completed a 4-month coding boot camp in February of 2023, so it's been a little while. It's 2 years now, yeah. I've built several projects and continue to learn every day. I haven't been able to get any interviews. My primary stack is MySQL, Java, Spring Boot, and React or Angular. I've done the Leet Code 150 in prep for an interview that I can't get, despite having refined my resume several times now. It feels like there's just an overabundance of software engineers these days. Not sure how much longer I can keep this up. I love building web apps, but I'm not considering a pivot into another field. So, thank you very much for the question. This is obviously, very challenging position to be in, and we'll chat through this. I wanted to remind folks, if you have questions you want answered, leave them in the comments. I'm literally reading them out and going through them. And if you don't want to leave it in the comments because you want it to be anonymous, send me a message to DevLeader. That is the personal brand that I use on all social media. Plus, that's my main YouTube channel. And yeah, I'll keep it anonymous. You can write more detail. So, like I said, I have it up on my screen, which you can't see. This is the kind of thing I normally would try out on my main YouTube channel because I record right here. But this is for Code Commute, so it's going to be off the cuff. I'm not editing any of these. That's part of the style because it's just a little bit less work, and I think people are enjoying this format. So I'm going to ask, or I did ask AI for 10 ideas to try and help someone that has I almost gave the exact comment. I kind of framed it up like I was asking AI for myself. So we'll see what ChatGPT has to say. I wanted to start off with a couple of other things before going over to the AI sort of ideas. In this case, when I'm just going to be very transparent here. I am expressing what my perspective is, my opinion. I'm not trying to claim a universal truth. And I want to try and help this person. So if it sounds critical, it's not meant to be like, oh, you're bad and you should feel bad. I want people to succeed. That's literally why I'm spending my Tuesday night at 10:15 to try and make videos and try and help. So just please keep that in mind as I go through this. I'm not trying to be an asshole. So I see completed a 4-month coding boot camp, and that's 2 years ago. I am not against boot camps at all. At least, like, if someone had it on their resume, I'm not like, oh man, like this person went to a boot camp. Oh, that's not how I perceive this at all. And the same way that I don't perceive like you must have a CS degree or something else like that, I don't really care. And I'm saying that because like I also don't really care that you have a 4-month boot camp. For context, I did go to university. I've talked about this in other videos. I don't say that because I think that I am better than other people, but I chose to go to university for 2 reasons, and they are different reasons than other people may have. One was that I had internships. So I had 6 internships from going to university over 5 years. So that was a huge thing for me where I was like, yeah, give me that. And then the other was that this is going to be a reason that probably many people don't do this, but in Canada, and this is actually the case for many other countries, if you want to be called an engineer, you literally have other requirements, and people don't acknowledge this, but like I said, it's the case in many countries. You need to go through an accredited degree program. I don't edit these videos, so you got to deal with me messing up. And so that was one of the motivations for me doing it. So it's not because I'm like, oh, I'm better than you. It's because I wanted to go through and get that like, professional engineering status. In the end, I never completed the other requirements. I didn't do my ethics test. I didn't do the 4 years of working under a PE, a PEng. So I am not a professional engineer by Canadian standards, but that's why I chose to go to university. So boot camp, university, college, I don't look at those as like one is better than the other, but 4 months, like I can tell you from my experience in university and going through internships, because I had 24 months of internships in total. 4 months is not a lot to learn anything. And I said I was going to, like, it's going to sound critical. It's not a lot to learn anything. I'm not saying that people can't be successful doing it, but I think this is one of the challenges with boot camps. And I don't know this individual. I don't know the boot camp. This person could be absolutely brilliant. It could have been an amazing boot camp. So I'm trying to be very transparent that I don't know these details, obviously. But I think boot camps often, there are many boot camps, and many of them are often trying to convince people, we have the boot camp that will get you to be the best in terms of experience. It's the fastest to do it. It could be they're competing on price. It's a marketing tactic. And I'm not saying that they can't work or they can't be helpful, because I know other people that have gone through and they've really enjoyed them and they felt like they learned a lot. I'm not saying that's impossible. What I am saying is that many boot camps will be structured in a way where they're like, look, we're going to get you through this fast and you're going to be an expert by the end. You will not be an expert at anything in 4 months. So I think that many boot camps set people up for false expectations. That's my point here. Not that it's bad or this person made a bad decision or that they're worse for being a boot camp graduate, just to be totally clear. But 4 months of anything, it's not a lot of experience. And like I said, the boot camp versus college versus university doesn't doesn't really make a difference to me. Now, will it make a difference? Because we're going to talk about the next part here. Because they said I haven't been able to get any interviews. Will it make a difference for getting interviews? Maybe. And this is again me being. I'm going to talk about things that are like it's reality, not necessarily my opinion. There are absolutely companies that are saying you must have a university or college degree in this field. And you might be listening to me saying that and saying, well, that's dumb. That doesn't make any sense. And like, that's not fair. And I am not saying that's my opinion, to be transparent, right? I'm not saying that's a good thing, like, sucks to be you. I'm just saying, like, that is the reality of it, that many companies are saying that. But that part's not in your control, and it's not in my control either. So you can be mad about it, and you can say that's unfair, and you're absolutely welcome to do that. But what I'm trying to say is that if that's what a company is saying, you're not going to have any luck changing that, most likely. You can try, I suppose, but I don't think it's going to be a good use of time to try and fight that. So you could either be upset about it, or you can say, like, I'm still going to apply, right? It might mean that you're applying to more places and getting more rejections, but that doesn't mean that there's definitely companies that write stuff on their job or the job postings, the job descriptions. You need 4 years of experience as an entry level, and like, apply to it, whatever, who cares? They might reject you, but they might just have that as like some requirement that like they copy pasted. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying that's good practice. I'm just saying if it's just the level of experience or just the university or college degree and you feel like you can do the rest there, why not apply? I feel like a lot of the job application, the job system, the hiring process, a lot of it's broken. So I'm not on the side of saying like, that I encourage that kind of behavior from the employer perspective. But my point is, like, if you feel like you're genuinely qualified and it's just something like years, and it's like, say, a junior level position, right? And you're like, it says 4 years, but I'm entry level, apply. You went to boot camp and they're saying you must have a university degree. I would apply. That's my advice on that. Um, But the reality is to then get frustrated by a rejection or to not get an answer is like they listed it. So I would say there's a chance, but I would not be surprised if you get rejected and they have that as a minimum requirement. It's one of those things where it's like it's an opportunity, and I feel like if it's low effort, you might as well take it. The whole point of going over this stuff first is to kind of frame up the rest of the conversation. So, um, I do think, just to kind of round this part out, I do think that there are many, many, many people in a similar situation right now. And that's challenging. I've talked about this in other videos, but I think especially because we have things like remote work, and basically companies can have a pool of candidates that is much greater than it used to be, right? Instead of saying like, so I live near Seattle. If I've talked about this in another video too. If I was running a company here and I said I want to hire people, historically before a lot of remote work, it would have been like, okay, you have to commute to here, so you got to be in the Seattle area or be willing to relocate so that your commute is tolerable for you. And that's going to be a smaller pool of people. Now I could say, "Okay, I'm running my company and I want to hire people. I put up the job description and it's like, yeah, you can work remotely." Suddenly the pool of people that are potentially able to work here is huge, right? There's way more applicants that are coming in because for an applicant to go send resumes, there's people that are sending hundreds. Someone commented on a video that said I don't know how this is even possible. They said they were applying to 80 to 90 jobs a day. I, I have told people that I interviewed John Vandeveer, who runs Laterally IO. By the way, that's a great resource if you want for questions like this. He has a lot of resources that are backed by data. So that's Laterally IO and John Vandeveer. I interviewed him, and he was saying he recommends applying to 100 jobs a week, 80 to 100, and people were freaking out, saying like, "That's ridiculous. How could you ever expect that? The system's broken." And he's kind of like, dude, I don't run the system, but like if you want to like increase your odds, like this is what I recommend. This person commented and said 80 to 90 a day. Yeah, I don't understand. But anyway, um, I think that one of the challenges is there's many people in this kind of situation where the amount of experience that they have to kind of reinforce, and kind of show off to when they're applying for jobs, it's going to look very similar to a massive pool of people. And I don't want that to feel as discouraging as it probably sounds. I'm just trying to remind you like this is probably what's going on and why it feels that way. To layer onto that though, back to one of the earlier points is that if you're hesitating to apply to jobs, I would just say keep in mind that there's probably other people that are equally as experienced as you or less, and they're probably applying to those jobs. I think a lot of this at some point ends up being a bit of a lottery, unfortunately. And so that sucks. Again, I'm not saying that like I support that and that I love it. I think that that's what's happening a lot of the time. So, with all that said, let's get over to the AI part of this because I think this might be interesting. The reason I'm doing this, by the way, is not to, what's a good way to put this? I'm not just trying to like minimize like what this person's going through and say, hey, let's just ask ChatGPT. It's going to have good suggestions. My reason for doing this is because some of the questions that come in on the channel, people are, they're coming to me for perspective, right? So I have perspective and I have whatever years of experience and my own personal experiences to share. Sometimes I think that people are honestly just looking for different ideas, genuinely. Because if you think about it, there's people that are coming back to watch my videos and they're like, hey, that was advice I liked, that resonated with me. I want to hear what else he has to say. Makes sense. Other people are like, this guy talks too much, whatever. I'm never coming back here. Leave me shitty comments. Okay, that's nice. But I think there's other people that stumble upon a video and they go, "Hey, this guy's answering questions. I should get some thoughts on this." And I think sometimes they're just looking for other ideas to explore. And that's why I wanted to basically show, can we ask AI for some ideas and then try to analyze what they look like? That's where my perspective and experience will come in as we go through these. But I think it's an interesting tool that we can use to generate ideas. Pardon me, I don't know where that's coming from. Okay, so here are 10 ideas to help you land your first software development role. And the first one's actually very related to what this person said. It said, build a strong portfolio. This person said that they're building web apps, right? They said, I built several projects to continue to learn every day. So this says, develop and showcase several well rounded projects that highlight your skills. So I think that this is something I would recommend hands down to every single person that's watching this. If you have capacity, right? If you can carve out time, I would absolutely try building projects on the side. This is such a good way to not only learn like new things. So this person was saying, hey, like I've worked with MySQL. Great. What about Postgres? Try that out. What about MongoDB? Try that out. Like you have this opportunity, this playground to go build stuff. So try things, right? Experiment. I think it's a great opportunity for it. Not only that, if you're not just copying and pasting out of tutorials, you are literally practicing building software. That's a similar, not the same, but a similar type of experience that you may have on the job, which I think is another good reason to be doing it. You are practicing. And even though it feels like, man, I'm falling behind, I never got a job yet, you're still building software. And that is steps ahead of other people that just said, well, I keep applying and I'm not getting anywhere, but they're not sort of taking more action to go skill up and do more things. So I do recommend this to everyone. This is something like, even for myself, right? So um, I before Microsoft, I was working at a digital forensics company. I would build stuff on the side. I'm working at Microsoft. I build stuff on the side. It's always something that I'm trying to using to skill up. And especially for me as an engineering manager with less time coding, I don't want to catch myself in a position where I'm like, oh, like I don't really, kind of falling behind on stuff. I'm going to keep coding. So I recommend this to everyone. Is it going to solve the problem of getting a job? No. But I think that other people are doing this. And this is one of the things that you, in my opinion, need to be doing to at least remain competitive when applying to jobs. That's one part. Next part. So contribute to open source is the second one here. I think this is interesting for a similar reason to the first. But one thing that's interesting about contributing to open source is you get this dynamic of actually interacting with people. So is this going to solve your problem of getting a job? Not necessarily. Could it look good on a resume? Absolutely. That's great, right? It's a great experience that you can share. Awesome. Especially if you're brand new to this stuff and you're like, I don't have any work experience. This could be something where you're like, hey, I was contributing. So that means when you're contributing to open source, very likely there's going to be people that get your pull request. They're criticizing it. They're talking through it with you. They're talking about different approaches. Like this is the kind of stuff that happens on the job. There's other things that go on as well, but this type of interaction I think is a really good one to be practicing, number one, and number two, to be able to talk about. So if you manage to get an interview and someone's like, hey, tell me, behavioral interview question, tell me about a time where you were, having a dispute with someone on a project that you were working on. Cool. You don't have work experience, right? That's going to be hard to answer. But remember that time you were contributing to open source and you and two other people were debating about the best way to go implement a feature into this open source project? Great. Talk about that. How did you navigate that? Now you have some experiences to share. So I think it's a great opportunity. Not everyone is down with contributing to open source. I get it. I feel like I've contributed to very few open source projects in my programming career, but it's because I end up spending a lot of time building my own stuff. So next one, freelance or volunteer. This is another one I recommend, but only personally, I only recommend doing the freelancing part. We're charging people stuff. Once you feel like I'm not just trying to learn, Because if you're like, I'm just trying to learn the basics still, and you're charging people money, I feel like that's not great. Number one, morally, kind of feels icky to me. Number two, if you're still trying to learn sort of fundamentals of how to navigate software engineering and software development, spending time trying to market yourself is like, unless you want to go down this path, which could be a great option for you, unless you want that, it's like you're practicing other skills when you could be practicing more in software development. So I feel like it may not be the best use of your time. I've talked about this in other videos as well. You can check out on my channel. But the volunteer part, regardless of your skill level, this could be great because if you're volunteering, you may find yourself essentially in a position where it's like a side project. It feels like it's open source, like the benefits of both of those. And it could be even more that might feel like even closer to, to working on the job. The difference is you're not getting paid for it. That obviously sucks. I get it. But we're trying to focus on the things that we have control over. So I understand that the goal is to be able to get a job, but if you're like, how do I keep building up these experiences? Volunteering could be an awesome opportunity. I know people that have said, like from LinkedIn, that have shared, like, as they're searching for their job, they're also looking for volunteer opportunities. They've been contributing to stuff on the weekends. So there's people that are working, they're career switchers. Okay. So they do have jobs already. They're switching to software development and they're experiencing the same type of thing. Like, I went to a boot camp. I haven't spent, like, I don't have professional experience doing this. So they volunteer. So they are literally able to spend some time on weekends or after hours contributing to volunteer, and they're building up that experience. That is literally something they can add to their resume. It's literally something they'll have experiences to share in behavioral interviews. So I think that it's an awesome opportunity. I know that some people are very against this because they say people should be getting paid. I understand. I feel like that might feel icky if it's a company that is making money and it's for profit and they're like, we're just not going to pay the software developers. I understand that feels icky, but there's plenty of things that might be not for profit and they need volunteers. So this is for you to decide, but the way I look at this is like, if you're like, hey, I need experience, it's an option, right? So I think that it's a great one personally. Network and tech communities is the fifth suggestion here. Oh, sorry, fourth one. I missed four. I can't count very well. Leverage coding bootcamp resources. This is something I will not know, but if this person went to a bootcamp, are there other resources available? Like, can you reach back out to the people that organize the bootcamp? I've heard from some people that enjoyed their bootcamp. They said one of the things that's really nice is that the bootcamp is still like welcoming to people that have like graduated from it and still want to support them. So do they have anything? Are there alumni from the boot camp that you can reach out to and talk to? Say like, hey, like, where did you get a job? How did you do that? Like, network with them might be a great opportunity. This is something I don't know a lot about, but I think that that's a very interesting one if you went to a boot camp. I would say if you went to a boot camp and they're kind of like, hey man, we already got your money. See you later. I feel like, sorry, you probably got duped a little bit, but I think this next part is going to be hopefully something that's helpful still. And that's number 5 on this list is network and tech communities. I think that this is great. Last year, I flew from Seattle to Dallas to go give a presentation at a meetup. And this was just people that meet up. This was Danny Thompson. He's a tech influencer creator. And he put this on in Dallas. So he's awesome. And so I flew in to go give a talk there. And there were people that were like, yep, I keep showing up to the meetups, trying to network with people. And they're navigating, trying to look for career options and stuff. But it's a great way to find other like-minded people, see what they're up to, see how you can get involved with different things. So I recommend that. The other extension of this is not just like in person, but I'm just reading what ChatGPT is saying here. So they're also saying like developer community. So find stuff online. Everyone's favorite place, LinkedIn. I am a LinkedIn creator, so I have a bias towards that. But I have seen people that are having success on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people complain about it, but I've seen people that are networking. And I think just to touch on this, I think sometimes people approach networking in a way that is more like a sprint compared to a marathon. And I don't think that works well. I think networking is slower. I think it needs to be intentional. I think it needs to be genuine. So, for example, you're like, hey, there's this guy, Nick, making YouTube videos. And like, he's a manager at Microsoft. I know what I'll do. Now that I know his name, I'm going to go on LinkedIn. I'm going to send him my resume and say, hey, Nick, thanks. Do you have any job openings? No, I don't. They're all listed on the Microsoft careers portal. That's where you go. I'm not doing resume reviews. Actually, someone asked about this. I might start doing resume reviews on my main channel. So maybe, just maybe, if you want your resume reviewed, do reach out to me and I will try seeing if I can queue up a playlist on my main channel, Dev Leader, and start doing those. But I don't just review stuff. Like, I got other shit to do. I'm pretty busy. I'm sorry. So when people reach out and they're complete strangers, like, that's not the way to network. When you reach out to someone and say, do this for me, I've had people say, hey, can you refer me to a job opening at Microsoft? And I'm like, man, I don't know who you are. Like, I would love for you to get a job, but I cannot refer you because I've not worked with you. I don't know who you are. And I have to put my name behind that. I'm not comfortable doing that. It's kind of a weird thing. Like, if you think about it, if you were walking past me on the street, you wouldn't just walk up and say, refer me to a job. It would be weird. So why do we do it online? So I would approach networking in a different way, which is be intentional, right? You see people posting about stuff, engage on what they're doing. You can send them a message and say, hey, sounds like you're doing really interesting stuff at work. What's it like to work there? I'm very curious. I would someday like to be doing something like that, I think. Could you tell me more about it? And like, you kind of approach things like you would as a human. Take some time. It's not going to happen in a week, but I think that this is something you can work on. You don't have to be you don't have to turn into a content creator to do it, but I think you can engage with people. You can find like minded people, reach out to them, and just be intentional about how you're doing it. So I think I've seen this be successful. And I know people watching this might say, like, I tried, or I hate LinkedIn, or I hate whatever I used online. I understand. If it's not for you, don't do it. It's cool. I'm not sitting here trying to twist your arm to make you do anything. What I will tell you is that if you're saying it doesn't work, I'm telling you, I have literally watched people that are doing this. They're volunteering, they're finding opportunities, they're getting jobs. It is working. It does work. It takes a long time. It's not a shortcut, it's not a hack. It takes time. But people are doing it, it does work. And so if you want to dismiss it because you're not enjoying it, it might be something you can change your strategy or approach. It might be something that you can do. Maybe you don't make it your first thing that you're focused on, but you can still kind of do some of this on the side. But I wouldn't give up on it because I do think that it works because I've seen it working. Next one, number 6, tailor your resume and cover letters. So, yeah, there's different, I think there's stats on this that talk about cover letters online. You can probably dig up stats and see if it's worth it for you to be writing cover letters. I think I've seen like interesting information about this, but it was something like however many people think it works versus like it doesn't work. And there's like a very, disconnected number there for cover letters. But I do think if you're doing a large volume of applications, it's really difficult to tailor your resume. But maybe what you do is you make a few variations of it, right? So maybe you have, depending on what types of roles you're applying for, maybe you have like 5 versions of your resume, 10 versions of your resume that highlight different skills, right? You use one for mobile development and you use one for web development in a particular stack. So this person, just as an example, they say, React / Angular. So they have experience in both of those things. Maybe they write one version of the resume that really focuses on like React and another one that really focuses on Angular, just as an example. Because if they find a job that they're applying to and it's like, we need a React developer, like, yeah, focus more on that. I'm giving you a very specific example with just that tech, but I'm trying to get you to think about that you can tailor or have some like a middle ground. You don't need to necessarily personalize every single resume because you might say, I don't have time to apply to jobs and do that. But can you have a group of them? And then that way you can say, oh, this type of role, I'm going to use this type of resume. That might be a good opportunity. Um, they say be sure to mention any collaboration or team projects, even if they were part of the boot camp. Yep. Um, there's something to be said about resumes, right? You want to make sure you're calling out impact. Uh, I think that depending on the company, right, I would imagine for companies that are getting tons of resumes, I must assume they're using something to start filtering resumes. So I wouldn't write your resume in a way that's like, this just seems like it's keyword stuffing. Like I can't understand what they're saying because it's just like acronyms and tech. But I wouldn't omit those things. I would make sure you're calling out the technology because you, as an example, you might have a recruiter that's going through and they're like, I know I need to look for Python, JavaScript, and SQL. And they're like, I'm looking for those things and I only see one of them. Like, no, because they got 999 other ones to go through. This is where I said it sometimes starts to feel more like a bit of a lottery or gambling. So I would just say those could increase the odds. And especially if they're using automation to try and sift through those, something to think about. Um, but yeah, maybe I can start doing resume reviews. So if people start messaging me and they're like, "Hey, can you review my resume?" I'm just gonna say, "Would you like it reviewed on my YouTube channel?" If I start to get too many of these, then I might start putting it behind like a membership or something. But we'll see. I don't want to make my whole channel about that, like even my primary one. But we'll see. I'm open to exploring it. Number 7, attend hackathons and coding competitions. Yeah, I think so. These are interesting. I think hackathons are a really cool opportunity. Um, you get to build stuff. You're working in teams. There's a crazy opportunity for networking. Usually, there's like companies that are sponsoring hackathons. I know that when I was working at Magnet Forensics before Microsoft, like I would go, like we would sponsor hackathons, and I would go to them all the time. We get to go either judge or we get to go help out the people that are hacking. We'd run a booth. People could come by and ask questions. So like amazing opportunity for networking. So hopefully if you like so far, I think AI is not doing a terrible job with ideas because maybe for this is for Michael Harrington, right? If you're not Michael Harrington, maybe this is applicable to you too, where you're like, yeah, I don't want to go to a hackathon. I've never considered that. It might be an option to start trying, right? If nothing else is working, maybe you need to try something different. Maybe you need to expose yourself to more area, like surface area for opportunities. Maybe going to do a hackathon could be, maybe it's actually more fun than you think. I know like I'm a super nerdy dude. I'm talking about software engineering stuff on a camera. Can I turn this around? Like, can I even show folks like what this looks like? I got too much stuff. One sec. I'm gonna unplug my camera. Hopefully it doesn't mess up. Let's do this. Come on. Okay. I'm gonna turn this around. Like when I say I'm a nerdy computer dude, like, can we acknowledge? I'm gonna turn this around the other way. You see how many screens I got here? Like, this is ridiculous. I'm a computer nerd, and I sometimes am like, oh, hackathons, like, yeah, nerds go to those. Like, and I did this in university too, right? Where I'm like, oh, I'm better than that. No, I'm a computer nerd. So if you're like me and you haven't, like, if you're like acknowledging this kind of later, um, you're going to be working with software developers. If you're like, oh, those are nerdy people, guess what? Yeah, I would try to network with them and I would try to spend more time exposing yourself into those communities and groups. And I think that could be an awesome opportunity. So again, that could be something you add on to your resume. Give me one sec because I'm going to pull this up on LinkedIn. I'm not going to share his name, but I had someone from the University of Waterloo, which is where I went to school. They had reached out. They were asking me in general about like, could we do like mentorship? And I said, I don't really have capacity for it, but we did a couple calls. Okay. This is an individual that was doing so many things. Like, you name an extracurricular software development type of thing, this guy was doing it. And he was talking to me like, what else should I be doing? I don't think I'm doing enough. I'm concerned. So I got a message on Sunday. He said, "Hey, Nick, long time. Just wanted to give you an update and let you know I got offers from Meta and Microsoft. Thank you so much for all your advice." I didn't do anything. I would love to say that I'm responsible for this. I did absolutely nothing. This individual was doing literally everything he possibly had time for. So, hackathons, volunteering for stuff, like building stuff on the side, like you name it, he was doing it. I'm not saying everyone has capacity for that, but what I am saying is that these types of things increase your surface area for opportunities. So consider it. Next up, develop soft skills in interview preparation. This one seems like it's a waste if you're not yet getting the interviews, but please don't ignore this, because when you start like breaking through and actually getting interviews, that becomes the next phase where you're like, okay, now I'm interviewing and I'm not getting the not getting the callbacks. Calls back? No one's calling me back. Yeah, I'm not getting the job. There we go. And that might be because you have not practiced for your interviews, right? You were too busy trying to get the interview that you forgot you need to practice your elite code, unfortunately. Or you haven't practiced behavioral interview questions. Should probably plug. I have a course on behavioral interview questions on Dome Train if you're interested. I always share though, like the main takeaway that I would tell people from that course is that you need to understand what interviewers are asking you in a behavioral interview question. And spoiler alert, it's not that they want to hear all the technology. They're more interested in the scenario and how you navigated that. Okay, so please do be practicing that stuff even while you're seeking your job. Next up, work on real world problem projects. So this is interesting. I'm divided on this. I think it depends what you're trying to do. I like the idea. I would say that if you're just trying to learn, if you're in a learning mode, it doesn't matter if it's a real world problem or not. Set yourself up on a project to go learn about the technology or the language or whatever. That's the purpose of it. If your goal is that you are sort of past that initial learning, so this person said they've been doing it for basically graduated boot camp 2 years ago. There's probably still learning, but they're probably like making some decent progress. Like, yeah, maybe it's time to start focusing on real world problems. There we go. That was hard to say. And that could be a really interesting opportunity for them to say, hey, look, these things might stand out more on a resume. So I think that's interesting. I would just say, like, you need to tailor that for what you're trying to do. Do you just need more experience to like learn? I don't care if it's real world or not, personally. And then finally, they said consider internships or apprenticeships. Probably easier said than done. So this one feels like a bit of a lousy piece of advice, only because I feel like it's not that easy, or else probably people would be doing this. With that said, I do love this. I think that from my own experience, like I wouldn't have stayed in university if I didn't have internships. I can't imagine I would have. I hated it. Shouldn't say hate. That's pretty strong. I didn't enjoy it. Internships I loved. I loved every internship I had. I learned so much. I knew from doing the internship, I'm like, I'm going to be a software developer when I'm done here. And I'm getting through school. So I really enjoyed it. If you are, so for this individual that I'm answering the question for, it might feel like it's too late. I don't know. ChatGPT is saying, even if you're past typical internship age, many companies offer apprenticeship programs or junior developer roles. I feel like that's, if that was a really common thing, you'd be doing it. But it might be something that I think is fair to call out here is like, have you looked up online for some companies that have opportunities like this? Like even for career switchers, right? Like Microsoft literally has programs for career switchers and people don't know about it. But if you were a career switcher and you were like, I wonder, like, does Microsoft have that? Does Facebook have it? Does Amazon? Does IBM have it? Whatever. They might. And they're big companies. They probably do. So go look for programs that are offered by companies. You might surprise yourself. So I think that's a fair thing to suggest, at least for creating ideas. Um, and if you're the kind of person that's like you're watching this and you're not yet in school, you're like, should I be doing this? What should I do? I would say my recommendation is if your school has an opportunity for internships, if you're deciding between schools, I would highly recommend to try and go somewhere that has internships. Personally, if I had to repeat, I've said this in other videos. I'm not just making it up this time. If I had to repeat what I did, I would do the exact same thing. I would try to go to university. I would look for a university program that offered internships, and I wouldn't change that part about what I did personally. So that's all 10. It's a super long video. It's probably the longest one on Code Commute that I've recorded at my computer. So I hope that was helpful. I'm sorry if you were listening to this and feeling like things were too critical. I am trying to be helpful. I am trying to acknowledge that things are not simple. I'm not trying to minimize that. So if that's something that you were feeling throughout the conversation, I'm trying to remind you now. I do understand it's challenging. I spend a lot of time talking to people online about these types of situations, and I try to remind people we need to focus on what we have control over. Because it's very easy to say, this frustrates me. I'm going to get down, like, I'm going to let it keep me down. But, like, you can do that, or you can focus on truly what you control. So I think this list that came from AI, I think it's interesting for ideas. And I think that hopefully there was at least one thing that I went through where you're like, maybe I haven't thought about that. Maybe I haven't thought about networking that way on LinkedIn. Maybe I haven't thought about going to hackathons and getting more exposure to, working with other people or seeing other companies. I haven't thought about going to coding meetups. Like, these might be things that you were like, I wasn't really thinking about it. And I hope that that can give you, something else to try out. So with that said, I'm going to wrap this up. I hope, for all of you watching, I hope you have success in your job search, and I hope that you have amazing careers ahead of you. I want you to succeed. Like, I think that, it's don't give up on it. I understand it's challenging. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.